markedly on the RTA side for sure.
Your conference is being recorded.
Janet, just to expand on what Ed said, the state level ridership would be down even more than that because they still have the work from home, generally speaking, the work from home order in place. And we'd actually been seeing a decline in state employee usage of Easy Ride and transit generally, probably over the last 4 or 5 years, because they've been doing a lot more. First of all, they've been actually downsizing state employment, particularly here in Nashville, and they've been doing a lot more remote work. So even if the people weren't working from home all the time, there's been a lot of, work from home or work from a remote office 3 or 4 days a week. So that's it's actually been one of the contributing factors in an overall ridership decline even before the COVID-19 stuff.
Sure, that makes sense. Thank you.
This was Steve Bland for the record, Monica.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, we're still here.
Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, okay. It just went silent all of a sudden in the background. I thought, did everybody just go home or get off the ball? I don't really know. Okay, so this is the MTA State Easy Ride contract renewal. So I know we had some good discussion on this. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Janet Miller, to approve the contract with TDOT.
Okay. And is there a second?
This is Walt Searcy. I second the motion.
So we have a second and a motion. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we are ready for the vote. When I call your name, please state yay or nay for the record. Janet Miller?
Yay.
Hannah Paramore Breen?
Yay.
Walter Searcy?
Yay.
Gail Williams? Yay. Okay. Next on our agenda is the renewal for state Easy Ride services, right?
Correct. The MTA RTA contract.
The MTA RTA contract, correct.
All right. On page 14, we do have the action item for the contract renewal between MTA and RTA. You just approved the state Easy Ride contract with MTA and TDOT, as MTA is the master, the main contractor for that service. But as I mentioned and as we discussed, RTA also provides services, and we share those revenues out of that contract. We do an analysis each year to look at the past year based on the ridership of MTA and RTA at their designated prices that we've had in the past, to see if that covers the entire amount of the contract that the state has used. And we did do that analysis again and found that the shared price of $3.15 a ride to go to the RTA was still a reasonable price based on that analysis. And we are asking to renew this contract with RTA for the same time frame of July 1, 2020 through June 30 of 2021 to reimburse RTA for their Easy Ride trips provided to state employees participating in the Easy Ride program at a rate of $3.15.
Is there any discussion? Any questions for Ed? With no questions or discussions, do I have a motion?
So moved. This is Walt Searcy moving the approval of the MTA-RTA arrangement.
Thank you, Mr. Searcy. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Janet Miller.
With there being a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? No further discussion. That might mean that we're ready for a vote. So when I call your name, will you please state yay, nay, or abstain for the record? Janet Miller?
Yay.
Hannah Paramore Breen? Yay. Walter Searcy?
Yay.
And that's a yay from me, Gail Carr-Williams, as well. Thank you. Okay, so next. Whew, here you go, Ed. Big one.
Okay. On pages.
We'll all pay dutiful attention. So this is big and important.
Yes. On pages 15 through 21, you have the proposed operating budget. And I will say that this is, I really do feel the board is pretty well informed on this budget. We've talked about it several times and Steve did a very good recap in last month's meeting. But to that end, we're proposing for the fiscal year 21 that this be the budget will be based on full service, even though I know we do not know that when we will go back to full service. We felt it was prudent to go ahead and assume everything at a full service. This also includes CARES Act money that Steve explained last month in terms of the $55.1 million that we received. This budget is assuming that we will use about $29.5 million of CARES Act funding. That is primarily due to Metro government cutting our subsidy by the $21.3 million, which we'll use CARES Act. We also are anticipating about a 50% loss in fare revenues. Again, we don't know how quickly we will see riders return to the service, so we hopefully are being very conservative and assuming 50% from last year's budget. Then we also have some additional expenses, cleaning, overtime, cleaning supplies, things like that for about $2 million. So that's what makes up the $29.5 million in terms of CARES Act funding being used. The overall budget's going up about $4.9 million or 5.8%, and that is primarily due to some larger one-time expenses that we're incurring, one of them being the cleaning expenses that I just talked about. We also have the new fare collection system at about $1 million. We have the other expenses related to COVID in that increase. Because one thing that Steve likes to look at, and it's really prudent for the board to look at the bottom of page 21, you see the cost per hour for the overall budget, and it's going up about 8.79%, which sounds high, but once you take out those one-time expenses of the COVID-related expenses, the fare collection, and some new positions that we have in there, it actually comes down to about a 3 to 5% increase, which is fairly reasonable. As you know, we had originally proposed about a 3% increase in there in Metro's subsidies. So once you take those into account, I think it's a pretty fair reflection of what the budget needs to be at this point. And I'm sure there might be questions, but I was going to keep this at a high level. So we're basically asking the board to approve this budget with an increase of $4.8 million in expenses, and also utilizing CARE Act funding to cover the shortages and other revenues.
And a prayer that 21, 22 is a wee bit different.
That is true. I guess for the record, we will say that Metro is contemplating being able to return to the regular funding in next year. We don't know if that's true. And also, if you look at the pages of 19 through 21, you see that we have the forecasts for 22, 23, and 24, and you actually do see the $29 million being used in this budget year, and then about $6.9 million being anticipated for next year. It just all depends on how everything falls out. If we don't return to full service and don't utilize all the expenses, that basically will mean that there's CARES Act funding that won't be needed this year and can be used in a future year. So, Walter, that's a very good point.
Great.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Janet Miller. This is the tiniest little detail, and it probably doesn't matter, but in the board book, the place where the board secretary signs for this budget on page 18 and on page 14 from the last motion has a date of June 25th, 2019, and it should be 20.
Very good catch.
Thank you for that, Janet.
Just thought if it mattered, I would point that out.
I guess Janet read the material.
I know. Very good.
Yeah, Janet read it. Very good. Kudos to Janet.
Okay.
Very good catch.
Okay.
every line of it. Every line, literally.
Every word.
Madam Chair, this is Steve Bland. Just a couple points to add to Ed's presentation. First of all, and I sent out a communication to the board earlier today. Right now, we're scheduled to go back to normal service levels on August 2nd. Obviously, if something radical were to happen between now and then, that could change, but that's really what our operating plan is at this point. And number two, Ed made some good points relative to the hourly cost of service. The other thing contributing to that increase is, if you'll recall, last year at this time you were not having a good time. You were approving a series of service reductions that cut our operating service hours by about 10%. So even absent some of the elements that Ed raised, because of the fixed costs involved in running the system, when you operate fewer hours, even though some of your variable costs are reduced, those fixed costs are essentially carried over fewer hours, which will tend to drive that rate up.
Good point, Steve. I did fail to mention that.
So the other question I would have, Ed, you mentioned that it's only a one this year for the additional dollars for cleaning.
Well, no, we carried those cleaning costs forward in the forecasts, of course, and so those costs were included in the future years as well.
Okay, I just wanted to get a clarification on that, just to make sure I understood what you were saying. Okay, and I would echo Walter's comments that this year and next year there's a high expectation that we go back to a budgeting process that was similar to the budgeting processes and dollars that we've had in the past. And I just want to make certain that we make that very clear as we go forward with this budget. Any other questions or comments? If there are none, do I have a motion?
So moved, Janet Miller. Move approval of the budget as presented.
Walter Searcy seconds the motion.
I have a motion and I have a second for approval of the fiscal year 2021 proposed operating budget. Any further discussion? No further discussion. When I call your name, please state yay, nay, or abstain for the record. Janet Miller?
Yay.
Hannah Paramore Breen? Yay. Walter Searcy?
Yay.
And Gail Carr-Williams is a yay as well. Thank you. A budget. Interesting times. I've been doing this for quite a while, and this is one of the most unique and extraordinary budgets I've seen, and you might agree with that, right, Ed?
I absolutely agree with you.
We've been doing this a while together, right?
We have been doing it quite a while.
Well, I just appreciate, Ed and Steve, all of your hard work on this. It was sort of a complete pivot from where we were before all this came about, but appreciate your hard work and just your expertise in making certain that we are where we are and where we need to be, and being good stewards and being good champions for our city. So thank you both very much. Appreciate it. And all your staff that helped you with this. Okay, Ed, we're up again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Liability insurance renewal.
Yes, ma'am. On page 22 of the board book, we do have the liability insurance renewal action. This is an annual event in that underwriters will not write the insurance for more than 1 year at a time. We carry $3 million worth of liability coverage with a $100,000 deductible. We have a broker that goes out to the market to price this out or cost this out each year. We've been with RLI for several years because they continue to give the best price. They did go back out. We did have one other company, Carolina Casualty, actually did give us a quote of $1.1 million, which is more than what RLI proposed. We also had 5 other companies that either chose not to due to lack of interest, or our fleet mix was not in their liking, or they just flat out don't do municipal fleets. So we are now recommending to the board that we do approve RLI for another year of service for our liability coverage at $957,798. And oddly enough, it's an 8.3% increase this year as it was last year. I thought that was kind of interesting, but it is an increase. And just for context, on the RTA side, we being about a 12 to 15% increase. So it's falling pretty much in line with what liability insurance is going for these days. But we are asking the board to authorize the chief executive officer to enter into a contract with RLI Insurance for our liability coverage for July 1 of 2020 through June 30 of 2021 for $3 million with coverage, and we will continue to have a $100,000 deductible for $957,798.
Thank you, Ed.
I have a question, Madam Chairperson. I'm sorry.
And that's Walter Searcy for the record. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is per occurrence. Ed, I couldn't recall.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And
we've only in the 17 years I've been here, we've only had one major claim that was at about $2.5 million for a liability exposure accident, but other than that, we have rarely ever had to utilize this.
Sure. And of course, we're always going to want to settle any claims at the liability limit.
Correct.
Is that right, Maggie?
That's right, Walter.
All right. That's it. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Walter. Any other questions? Any other comments? So you're okay, Ed, with the 8.3% increase?
Yes, ma'am. Based on the fact that the only other quote we got was from Carolina Casualty, and it was at a $1.1 million. It's just a fact of life we're going to have to live with, that liability exposure is getting more expensive due to more claims that have been filed and accidents and things like that. So I feel pretty fortunate, as again, this was lower than what RTA was looking at. So I think it's pretty reasonable.
Okay. Thank you very much. So do I have a motion for this liability insurance renewal?
Walt Searcy moves approval of the liability renewal contract.
And do I have a second?
Second. This is Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Walter. So any other further comments, conversation, questions? There being none, we are ready for the vote. When I call your name, please state yay, nay, or abstain for the record. Janet Miller?
Yay.
Hannah Paramore-Breen?
Yay.
Walter Searcy?
Yay.
And Gail Carr-Williams, myself, is also a yay. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We now have insurance for everything, which is good. Ed, I think I have you for one more thing, right? The MTA East Ride Program Revenue Sharing Agreement.
Yes, ma'am. On pages 23 and 24, we do have a proposal for the board to consider. This is actually kind of step 2. If you recall, back in November, the board authorized the staff to work with the RTA to develop a pilot program for the Easy Ride program, mainly to promote expanded use of the program, but also to fulfill RTA's audit finding from the Comptroller's office. They wanted them to have contracts in writing. We have gone back to the RTA has been approved. Steve, well, no, we're not having a report, but the RTA has been approved for a new year of sunset. And this is fulfilling the final piece of the finding, and that is to have contracts in place. We do have a couple of companies in town, including Vanderbilt, that are participating in the pilot. Now we need a way to share that revenue between MTA and RTA. So we are basically asking the board to consider approving us entering into an agreement with RTA where the revenues of the business partners for this new pilot program will be assigned to both MTA and RTA based on a weighted average fare. As you know, RTA's fares are about double. They're at $4.25, or at the train it's $5.25, whereas our one ride is $2. So RTA gets skewed a little bit because of their higher fare structure, but the predominance of the usage is on the MTA side. So we have come up with a weighted average formula that we will use. We will have this in the annual conflict of interest review that the Operations and Finance Committee will do typically in the fall for the previous year to talk about how the formula was calculated. And we will also have this as part of the audits for both entities, the external audits, to have those formulas looked at for reasonableness as well. So we're asking the board to approve entering into an agreement with RTA for the Easy Ride program revenue sharing agreement for July 1 of 2020 through June 30 of 2021 based on this weighted average formula, and that Nashville MTA will be the master contractor for all the Easy Ride programs and will share the revenues with RTA based upon this calculated formula. And also, again, it will be reviewed by both boards and through the conflict of interest. So, Madam Chair, that is what we are asking the board to approve.
Thank you, Ed. Are there any questions? So opposed to RTA having their own Easy Ride program, everything will go through MTA, correct?
Right. It'll go through the WeGo public. It'll go through our branding of WeGo public
right.
transit.
Okay. I still hold on to that MTA legal, but I do wear purple.
Madam Chair.
Pardon?
Madam Chair, this is Steve again. Kind of doing a look back at when the board originally approved the concept of the demonstration, when particularly Jason Mincer, our Director of Marketing, was doing a lot of focus group work with employers. The very strong preference for current and potential Easy Ride customers was to have a consolidated program so that they wouldn't have to deal with two separate entities. So that's sort of the reason. And Ed touched on the fact that because the overwhelming majority of rides on Easy Ride are taken on MTA, and the fact that the MTA is the administrator of the fare collection system, which the RTA is also installing, that it made the most sense for MTA to hold the master agreements with employers, and then for there to be this subcontract between MTA and RTA to distribute the proceeds.
Well, that's great. And, you know, it just sort of means our branding is working really well, which is exciting. Okay, any other questions or comments? So do I have a motion?
I move approval as presented. This is Hannah.
There you go, Hannah. You got you one, right?
Hey, man, I've been waiting for weeks to do that.
I know.
Second Hannah's motion.
I'm happy for Hannah. And it is seconded by Walter. Cersei?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Walter. So any further discussion? So now we are ready for the vote. When I call your name, please state yay or nay or abstain for the record. Janet Miller.
Yay.
Hannah Paramore Breen.
Yay.
Walter Cersei.
Yay.
Bill Carr Williams. Yay. Okay. I think
that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
You sure you don't want to have a couple more?
I really don't. No, ma'am.
You've been working extremely hard, and know that your work does not go unnoticed, and we appreciate all your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Here, here.
Yes. So it's a lot, especially in the environment that we're working in. So kudos.
Going to take us down the right-hand side of the accounting.
Yeah. Well, next up, Mr. Walker, the next item on the agenda is the Hillsborough Construction Contract Award. Trey?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I tried to offer my item to Ed just so he could, just be like a cricket batter and just keep the whole inning on his side, but he said he had other things on his plate.
He had other things to go do.
Happy to present this afternoon. As you know, we've discussed the Hillsborough Pike Transit Center several times in previous board meetings, specifically regarding cooperating agreements with MNPS and maintenance agreements with Metro Public Works. Just as some background on the project, the renovation of Hillsborough High School and the associated relocation of the existing WeGo stop presented an opportunity to advance this project. With the agreements adopted by the board and funding in place from federal and local funding sources, the project is progressing through the design process in conjunction with the renovation at the high school. The transit center will be located along Hillsborough Pike, adjacent to the high school and across the street from the Mall at Green Hills. The transit center will replace a busy but yet undersized stop that would be served by the 7 Hillsborough route, along with the potential future extension of the 17 12th Avenue South route. Overall, we view the project as being constructed integral with the high school renovation. This means initial contracting measures such as underground utilities and roadway infrastructure will be constructed this summer and fall, while future components will be constructed in 2021 with a goal of completing the project in the summer of 2021, aligning with the completion of the high school renovation. One industry that is not slowed down due to the pandemic is the construction industry. We've witnessed this on our current construction projects due to lower utilized roadways and rail stations, as we're experiencing out at Mount Juliet and along the Nolensville corridor on our ongoing projects. The Hillsborough High School renovation is no stranger to this phenomenon and is also rapidly advancing current efforts with the suspension of on-campus activities this spring and summer. Upcoming work on the site duplicates the nature of the work required for the transit center, specifically underground utilities, curbing, sidewalk, and roadway paving efforts. As such, the transit center project can be completed in a most timely and cost-effective manner by utilizing American Constructors as the contractor used by MNPS. This approach meets FTA's requirements for a sole source procurement of construction services due to the substantial duplication costs associated with a separate construction contract and the unacceptable conditions caused by a delay as school construction will displace the current bus stop. Additionally, the MNPS construction contract with American Constructors was procured in accordance with public bidding requirements through MNPS. To aid in the advancement of site construction activities, our design team developed a bid package for the underground utilities and foundations and requested a bid from American Constructors. Following the bid opening, WeGo staff performed a cost analysis of the bid and compared the bid to an independent cost analysis and unit prices from publicly procured projects. As a result of the analysis, following FTA best practices, we determined American Constructors' bid of $269,516 for the construction of the underground utilities and foundations to be fair and reasonable. The bid also included an alternate for deep foundations associated with an associated added price of $105,434.50. In total, the Phase 1 bid package included a DBE requirement of 2%, and American Constructors will be attaining this goal by utilizing a DBE trucking and hauling company and looks to attain a 3% participation on this package in doing so. The final designs for the transit center structure, canopies, and amenities are under development and anticipated to be completed this fall. Following completion of the design, a second bid package will be sent to American Constructors. The second bid package will establish a separate DBE requirement for the remaining work and is also subject to similar cost analyses as performed on the Phase 1 project and a separate board approval prior to advancing construction. So in summary, the sole source nature of this procurement is permissive as outlined by FTA to avoid substantial duplication costs and unacceptable delay, and the price submitted by American Constructors was determined to be fair and reasonable in accordance with FTA best practices. Therefore, we request the board grant the CEO authority to enter into a construction contract with American Constructors for a base amount of $374,951, which includes the base bid amount as well as the deep foundation alternate. And we recommend the board authorize a project contingency of 20%, resulting in an authorized not to exceed Phase 1 construction total of $449,941.
Okay. So, are there any questions? Thank you, Trey.
Yeah. This is Walt Searcy. Now, this is a separate contract, an initial contract for infrastructure, below ground utilities and curbs and gutters. This is not dealing with any superstructure. No canopies, no overhead walkways, no benches, and there's going to have to be a separate bid for the latter that will also contain with it a different DBE requirement. Am I correct in that, Trey?
That's correct. The work that this contract authorizes is underground up to grade, basically sidewalk elevation. So we're, in addition to the underground utilities and slab prep for our climate-controlled waiting area, we'll be pouring those foundations for our future canopies and basically stubbing up those pedestals where we'll be attaching the eventual canopies in that second phase. So basically we're going up to sidewalk elevation and halting, and you are correct that second phase will contain its own DBE goal reflective of the nature of the work that is a part of that bid package.
Now, just one final question, and is that going to be also a closed request to American
Yes.
Construction?
Yes, sir. That'll be a sole source as well, for the same reasons that we're sole sourcing this package. So as part of the overall phasing of the site, the team out there is constructing this first phase of road frontage and street side improvements this summer. Once that's complete, the work on site will shift to another part of the site as they're working to stage with the return of students to the school, and we'll return to this location next year for final implementation of their grading packages and some roadway work that's taking place interior to the school site between the road frontage and the school building, which is where the transit center is being constructed. So work will move back to adjacent to this area in that timeline of early spring through the summer of next year. So for the same reasons of duplication of costs and unacceptable delay of bidding separately, we'll be sole sourcing this as well. And then just on the construction side, it's sort of as a third level, those are the FTA justifications. And then in addition to that, from a construction liability perspective, with us creating foundations being constructed in this phase, separately bidding to assume the conditions of those is a risky liability for us to be taking on. Someone being one contract and contractor being responsible for foundations, and someone else being responsible for the structure constructed on top of those foundations.
Got it.
So with that and the other FTA considerations, we're going to be looking to sole source that pending fair and reasonable cost analysis is rendered.
All right. That's satisfied. Madam Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Those were great questions. And I do have one question for you, Trey. What is, if you can refresh my recollection, what is our DBE goal right now?
Our DBE goal for the project is 2 for this first phase. And then separately we'll be evaluating that second package.
But our organizationally, don't we have a goal? I remember
we do, and I don't have it.
Does anybody maybe on the call have it in front of them? Because I was thinking that it was our overall goal was higher than 3%.
Madam Chair, this is Steve. It definitely is. Unfortunately, I don't think either Rita or Amber are on the line. I will. I'll find that out and shoot it out to all of the members ASAP.
Yeah, and I guess I would just sort of echo a little bit of Walter's sentiments that and we've had good discussions about this at our board meetings, that it's really important that we push forward and make certain that our goals, that we're meeting our own goals, not just, it's just really important, particularly when we're doing a contract of this nature. And I don't oppose it or anything, but I do think it's important for us to sort of share with whoever we engage with how important these DBE contracts are.
Yeah.
Madam
Absolutely.
Chair, this is Amber Gooding, and I am on the line.
Hi, Amber.
Welcome, Amber, you're
welcome,
here.
Amber.
Yeah.
Welcome, Amber.
I'm here. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Everybody
so
meet Amber.
Question,
She's brand new. Yeah.
I am, and I look forward to meeting you all in person at our next board meeting, perhaps. Our overall goal is 6% for the entire organization, and with specifically that includes an estimate for goods and services. So that is right now our overall goal for our 3-year methodology. We are working on the new methodology that will come before you all sometime in the fall. That will probably reflect a little bit different goal, but right now our overall organizational goal is 6%.
I appreciate that, because I did recall in my head, but not with certainty, that it was substantially higher than the 2% or 3% that we're talking about today. So thank you, Amber, and again, welcome. Glad to have you aboard.
Well, thank you.
So are there any other comments or questions regarding this? If there are none, do I have a motion?
This is Walter Searcy. I move the approval of the contract with American Constructors.
This is Hannah, and I second it.
So thank you, Walter, for the motion. Hannah, thank you for the second. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, when I call your name, please state yay, nay, or abstain for the record. Janet Miller?
Yay.
Hannah Paramore Breen?
Yay.
Walter Searcy?
Yay.
And Gail Williams is a yay. So the motion carries, and it is approved. So it'll be fun to sort of see it all come to fruition. We have been talking about it for a long time. So thank you, Trey Walker, for this work, and look forward to seeing all of it come about. I don't have anything else on my agenda. Make certain. So I don't, but I will just take this chair's privilege and say that our thoughts and hearts are with Rita Turner Roberts. Her father passed away this week, and, we just thinking about her and sending prayers and warmth her way. So just wanted to make certain that we took a moment. Rita does really good things for us here at MTA WeGo, so just want her to know that we're thinking about her during this difficult time. I just want to remind you all again that the governor's executive order will end on June 30th, so there is a high likelihood that our July meeting will be in person, but more information following that. Steve, anything else?
No, Madam Chair, just point out for your information, the normal operating statistics, financial reports are in the packet. So if members have any questions, you'll also see the quarterly route performance report. And coming back to Janet's question about ridership trends, that report is January through March. So we started to see between the tornado and the front end of the COVID crisis, March, when you see the radical depression in ridership. That was largely due to March with both tornado and COVID cutting into ridership quite a bit.
Yes, and thank you for remembering that. And I'll just sort of say again, if anyone has questions specifically about any of those reports, please reach in to the staff. I'm certain they would be more than happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that you might see there. With that, if there's any board members, anything further?
Move adjournment.
Well, with the motion for adjournment, I'm certain Hannah is seconding that, right, Hannah? Everyone stay healthy and safe, and we'll see you all soon. Take care of one another.
Thanks, Gail. Take care.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.